Okay, so we live in a world that's literally designed to steal your focus, right? Well, today we're breaking down a pretty radical philosophy for taking it back. It's called the monk mode framework, and it's an intense protocol for anyone looking to achieve some serious, deep focus and, ultimately, personal power.
So this whole thing kicks off with a pretty bold claim. The idea is that modern culture has engineered an obsession with romantic pursuit, and for a lot of people, that becomes the ultimate distraction. The entire goal of monk mode is to break free from that cycle so you can build a life that's truly focused. We're going to tackle this in 5 parts. First, we'll define what this modern obsession really is. Then, we'll look at how your brain gets hacked. After that, we'll get into the theory of reprogramming your own mind, the practical steps of the monk mode method itself, and finally, what it all leads to, reclaiming your power.
All right, so first up, let's really dig into the core problem this framework is trying to solve. This isn't about healthy relationships or anything like that. It's about what it calls hypersexualization. Basically, a state where chasing partners and validation becomes this constant, overwhelming distraction.
Now, the way this framework sees it, this is way more than just a normal interest in dating. It's described as this all-consuming thing that just eats up your mental energy from the moment you wake up till you go to sleep, completely derailing you from your own goals.
And look, the consequences here are super real, right? This isn't some abstract idea. We're talking about a real loss of time, of energy, and that feeling that you're not really in the driver's seat of your own life, all because your focus is constantly being hijacked by this need for someone else's approval.
So the big question is, how did we even get here? Well, the framework explains it as having a hacked brain. It argues that this state of obsession isn't a bug, it's a feature, an engineered feature of our modern digital world.
This is where the framework makes a really key distinction. It draws a hard line between a healthy, normal biological drive and what it calls a modern, engineered addiction. One is balanced. The other is fueled by this never-ending stream of digital stimulation from social media, dating apps, you name it.
And this is where it gets interesting. The framework breaks it down into this, well, it's basically an addiction loop. Think of it like a slot machine that's designed to keep you pulling the lever. Every scroll, every message, it's a gamble for a tiny hit of dopamine, a fake reward that keeps you hooked while it just drains your time and attention. And that leads to this classic saying, right? When something is free, you are the product. The point here is that these platforms, they're not built for your well-being. They are built to capture your focus. Because in this digital world, your attention is the product that gets sold.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we know the mechanism, but just knowing isn't enough, right? This whole framework is about action. So how do you actually fix a brain that's been wired for distraction? Well, the solution, it argues, is all about understanding how our brains actually work.
And the key to all of this, the magic word really, is neuroplasticity. Your brain is not set in stone. The very same process that wires your brain for addiction can be used in reverse to unwire it and build new, way more powerful habits. You just have to do it on purpose.
I love this analogy they use for this. Think of your habits like paths in a forest. The more you walk down a certain path, the wider and clearer it gets, right? It becomes the default. So every time you give in to an urge, you're just paving that old, destructive path. To change, you have to consciously stop using that path and start carving out a new one.
And this is the real turning point. It's a huge shift in focus. It's not just about what you're trying to stop doing, but what you want to start building instead. And that brings us to the actual method. So let's get into the how-to. The framework lays out this defined period of intense focus, a protocol it calls monk mode. And listen, this is not a permanent lifestyle change. It's meant to be a short-term, high-intensity reset button for your brain.
So it all boils down to these 4 pillars. It's not just about avoiding stuff. You have to have a crystal clear goal for what you're going to do with all that reclaimed focus. Then you have to actively replace the bad habits and, crucially, commit to it for a set amount of time. Now, this next part is intense. The elimination list is super strict, and for a good reason. We're talking total abstinence from the main sources of distraction, whether that's dating, social media, whatever your vice is. The whole point is to starve those old neural pathways, to wipe the slate clean so you can start fresh and reprogram your brain's reward system around your new goal.
And this right here might be the single most important technique in the whole method, impulse redirection. The idea is you don't just sit there and fight an urge. The moment you feel it, you physically get up and do something productive instead. You're literally retraining your brain to connect that trigger with a new, positive action that gives you its own kind of reward.
All right, last section. What's the end game here? What's the whole point of putting yourself through this? Well, it's all about a fundamental shift in your own personal power.
What we're talking about here is a total transformation. It's about shifting from being reactive, just letting your impulses run the show, to being intentional and in control of your actions. You move away from needing that validation from the outside world and start building that strength from within.
So, at the end of the day, this whole thing isn't really about what you're giving up. It's about what you gain. We're talking about real, tangible results, like learning a new skill, getting in the best shape of your life, or finally starting that business, all built with the power of your own undivided attention.
And it all comes back to this one powerful idea: reclaiming your own agency. The ability to just say no to distractions, to impulses, to whatever the world is demanding of you. That is presented as the absolute foundation of building a life on your own terms.
And that's our look at the monk mode framework. We're going to leave you with this final question, because it really gets to the heart of the whole philosophy. It suggests the goal isn't just about what you eliminate, it's about what you suddenly gain the power to create. So what could you build?